Come on, let's go.
All right. I'm 20 minutes late. Welcome to I Can't Work on My Phone, Desktop, Other Things. And just let me quickly introduce myself. Hey, I'm Stefan. And I'm a front-end developer. I'm an occasional teacher. I'm a meetup organizer. I'm from Berlin. I'm mainly into open source, web performance, and web accessibility. And we do a thing in Berlin. What we do is we educate people for free to learn CSS. This is a collaboration with Open Tech Schools, so maybe you want to teach also, because it's awesome. So what we do is we inspire people to get creative with CSS, and maybe some people go into the industry after that. So I just want to quickly mention that. And I work for a company that is called Contentful. So we're basically a headless CMS, which means that we are API first. And with something like Contentful, editors get a CMS and developers not necessarily have to work with them. So you might want to check that out. And the most important fact for today, when I was younger, I had a passion for music. I spent every minute playing. And what is the career path I should choose then? I became a sound engineer. I had average grades at high school, but I discovered that when I'm really into something, I could motivate myself to learn and learn and learn and learn. So I learned the theory of harmonies, acoustics, and it all went really, really well. And then at some point, I lost my passion. And I slowly became unhappy. And the main reason for that is that I haven't discovered anything new for a while. And then, more or less by accident, I got a bachelor's degree in media and computer science, because I was always good with computers, right? So study something with computers. And then it happened. I found another passion. Web technology. And this is now 6 or 7 years ago. And now, web technology is everywhere. It runs on the server. Some people are creating bots with Node. I mean, how cool is that? And surely web is still the strongest use case of web technology. And when I started, I had to fight for it, but now we all can agree that mobile is the thing, finally. Mobile usage is convincing. We have progressive web apps. Yes. JS is powering everything. According to GitHub, there were 1,600,000 pull requests on JavaScript repos 2016. This is 4,000 pull requests a day. On GitHub, there are 5.8 million active developers. This is like the population of Denmark. And let me tell you something. According to Stack Overflow, 70% of these developers consider themselves to be self-taught. This is 4 million people. And these people, myself included, do learn out of curiosity. And it doesn't matter how important my phone is for me. What I do is, I spend 9 or 10 hours a day in front of this machine. And for my friends, it looks like I'm always working, but this is not true. I'm learning all the time, right? So I got this statement at least 1 or twice a week. And why do I spend so much time working? Because I cannot do it in front of a mobile phone. I cannot program on a phone. And even reading articles that are a little bit longer doesn't work for me in front of my computer. So what I want to show you is Electron, because I'm spending 9 or 10 hours a day in front of a desktop machine. And with Electron, I can now finally build stuff for this environment. Electron is made by GitHub, and it's not that new anymore. This is already almost 3 years ago, and what they decided is that they wanted to build their dream editor with web technology. And to do that, they had several requirements. First of all, they needed a way to write to disk, right? An editor writes to disk. This is not possible with a normal browser. They wanted to use native functionality, and they wanted to have a clear separation of concerns. This project was not the first project that tried to solve the problem of web technology and desktop environment, but they're all lacking this separation of concerns. And we will see what this means a little bit later. So they came up with Atom, right? I think everybody is familiar with Atom. And Atom is based on Atom Shell. And Atom Shell is a Node.js programmable Chromium browser. So let's quickly check the architecture. So what you see here is that Chromium is based on two different kind of processes. There's the browser or main process. This one is responsible for window management, tray management, menu dialogues, and then there are several renderer processes. So when we look at the Chromium here, we see that all the parts, the taskbar on top, which you don't see, and this thing, and the little thingy on top of the window, are all handled by the browser process. And then we have the actual tab content, which is done by the renderer process. So this is how a browser works. And we have to mention that these renderers are all sandboxed. The code that runs inside of that cannot get out of that, because that would open a big security problem, right? When something like this could get out of this environment. So let's have a look at Atom Shell. Atom Shell just exchanges the C++ parts and adds Node.js here to the mix. And there's no sandbox anymore around. This means that the Node.js script or the JavaScript that runs in here now can easily access the sandbox, the file system. And Atom Shell was usable by itself from the beginning, but there was the problem that people didn't get it. It's Atom Shell, right? It's powering Atom. So the marketing department had to kick in. Renaming, rebranding, people can understand that now. And I think this is true. So basically, inside of the Electron source code, there are still a ton of references to Atom Shell. It's just a rebranding. So what does it take to build a desktop app with Electron? All you need, and the code I will show you now is the base setup for all the code that is following. You need a valid package JSON, and you can define Electron as a dev dependency. When you're looking for resources or tutorials, you will most likely find the reference to Electron pre-built. This was in the beginning because the Electron package was taken on NPM, but the owner made it free at some point. And then you have the Electron binary available, and you can just put it into an NPM script. Then you have to define a main file, and this is it for the package JSON, and this is the main.js for the starter app. So we have to require some dependencies, the app and the browser window. Then there are some utils to make the whole thing cross-platform, Windows and Mac, forward, backward slashes, right? And then there's one function that is called createWindow, which then creates a new window with the given properties, and it loads a index file, and there's a reference stored outside of this function scope. Maybe we want to do something with it later. And then the app module, which we required on top, will at some point fire a ready event, which means that we now can do useful stuff. And the index file I just mentioned looks like that. So here we see that we can already use Node.js variables, so process, and we can also use require, because this environment now is enriched with Node.js stuff. So let's have a look what happens when we run this. Boom. We just created a desktop app, right? A not too fancy one, though. So what just happened is, by calling new browser window, we created a new renderer process. And this example is not really fancy and also not really exciting. And what I want to show you next is 3 use cases that Electron solved for me. In my last company, there was my CTO, and he recommended everybody to install this one Mac app, which was called Caffeine, a little coffee cup. Maybe someone knows about that one. And the reason for that is just, I want to click this, and it should prevent the screensaver from kicking in. Not a big use case for me, but for him it was horribly important to have this app. So what does it take to build this? So here we see another main.js file. So we're requiring some dependencies. So we have the app, which we just saw. We want to build a menu because we want to have a little icon somewhere, which then shows a menu when we click on it. A tray. A tray is basically in macOS, it's the icon on top, or on Windows, it's the icon right below. And, well, we want to prevent native functionality, and Electron provides already something that is called power save blocker. That's it. And the path module, then we're defining two icons. I designed a pillow. And we need a menu. And for that, we use the menu module. And you see here, OK, time for sleeping again. Both have a callback function, and then quit when we want to stop it, right? There's nothing too fancy going on here. And here we see again the initialization then. There's a ready event firing. And instead of init browser or create browser window, we now call a function that is init tray. If we're on macOS, we don't want that this thing appears in the dock, because it's just a tray app. And then setting an image, setting a menu, and a tooltip for hover behavior. And the callback that will be called when the menu is clicked is called toggle sleep permissions. So how this works is that there's this power save blocker module, and this can create a new blocker, which reference I keep outside. This is the LED current blocker. And then I'm just creating new ones or cleaning them later on. And I'm switching the menu and the image all the time. So when we run this, yeah, you see the half pillow? Yeah, all right. So I just wrote a completely native working app. This was 72 lines of code, including comments. Native functionality using Electron is extremely easy to implement. And there are several more modules to help me get, for example, screen information, the home directory. Using the clipboard in the browser is still kind of funky. And, for example, adding protocol handlers so that the app kicks in when you click something specific is also already solved. So this was my first example with 72 lines of code. My CTO would have been really proud of me that I built that. So the second use case. I'm listening to a lot of podcasts. And I'm mainly listening to them here. But sometimes I'm on my computer. And then I want to also listen to podcasts. And I'm that kind of person. You see how many tabs I have open? I don't even see fav icons anymore. I'm happy when I have icons there. I don't need another tab, right, to just play a podcast, because I'm using Chrome and it's already packed anyways. So what does it take to build a podcast tab? Here we see an index.html file, and it has some styling to get the full height and width of the container. And then there's this thing that is called webview. And then I can just put it in. And this is where the web app is stored of my favorite podcast player. And an WebView is unlike an iframe. It runs in a separated process, and it doesn't have the node context. Remember, everything here I can run node, but not inside of that one. So when I now kick this off, I just deleted one tab from my browser. And this has its own icon, works completely fine, success for me. But you see that here, the target blink links are not working. So we can fix that. So we can include a preload script, and let's have a look at that one. This is just really just a click handler on the window element, and it does a really naive check. So if the href goes somewhere else as the current web page, then it just calls this thing here, open external. And you might wonder now, well, Stefan, you said that we don't have Node functionality in there. The preload script is an exception. Everything that runs in here, because this is under our control, can use Node functionality then. So when we have a look now, we see that, come on, we solved this issue with the target blink length. And this really means that I have a podcast app, which helps me already a lot. I don't know what you use, but there are probably a few tabs that you would be happy about when they wouldn't be there. So default functionality that is integrated already in Electron is show given items in the file explorer, open items with the default action. That's really important if you want to feel native, right? Open external URL, we had a look at that one. Moving stuff to the trash, depends on your app. And yeah, beeping. I have no idea which application beeps still, but it's there. So this is the WebView example. For me, this is a crazy productivity boost because I can app everything, right? And default system functionality is extremely easy to implement too. But we are not open an editor and coding these apps all the time again, right? I mean, that's not programmer style. And there was this project, which is called Natifier. And it is an NPM project. You have to install it globally. And let's maybe create a SoundCloud app and skip the step of us writing something. So what this does is it allows us to really quickly web any web app that is out there. And with one command, in 5 seconds, I created myself a SoundCloud app. For me, this is unbelievable good, because I'm apping everything. This is great. And then you saw my browser behavior, right? 50 tabs plus. I have to admit, I'm the same person in my terminal. 10 watchers over several panes, several tabs, no problem. So what I was looking for was a tool that helps me get rid of that, because when I want to get in my terminal, I just want to type something and it should be free. So last summer, I built Forest. And this is basically an NPM scripts desktop client, which lets you execute anything that is defined in the scripts in your package JSON. So you see here a native-looking terminal output running. I'm using several windows, native open dialogues, and now I'm running 2 scripts in 2 different repos, and I'm not using my terminal here. And it supports different render processes and windows. And native context menus in a second. Right click. And it has a setting where I can just say, all right, stay always on top. That means when I'm working, I now have one of these windows on the right hand of my monitor, and it's just running. And my terminal is always free, because this is just the watcher I'm using for the front-end stuff I'm doing anyways. Dun, 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 dun. And synchronization between all the windows. Yes. When you spawn a renderer window from the main process, you have to use kind of a communication channel. In Electron, this is called IPC. So what happens when I just deleted one repo here in this app, the child process, the renderer process, just sends an event to the parent, which then can react and maybe send back. This is crucial when you want to build apps that consist out of several windows. So how does this work? So in the renderer process, you have to require the given IPC renderer module, then you send an event. This is then the main process, which controls everything. So I'm listening for the event. This is abstracted. I'm doing some crazy file system and saving stuff, and then I'm sending back. And it is a Vue.js application, so based on Vuex. So all I have to do then is just put the state back, and then everything will react accordingly. So when we look at the architecture I showed you in the beginning, this is what is actually happening. This sends an event, goes there, and it's coming back, and this one is updating accordingly. But this is not what you saw, right? What you saw is that this one sends, and these three reacted. So when we want to do that, we have to just store references to the windows, and instead of event sender emit, we can now use window web comments emit. It's just simple event handling and send and reacting. So with something like that, we can then do that, and everything reacts. And I built this thing last summer, and I was like, yeah, it could not be too hard to build a terminal output, right? I mean, execute something, get something back, that's it. And this was my first approach here. So as said, I'm writing Vue, and what I'm using is normal execution function provided by Node.js to spawn a child process. And I'm setting this to process. And then I'm using the events that are triggered data on standard out and standard error. This is pretty simple Node stuff. But there's no guarantee that standard out and standard error come back in order. So when I'm doing a long npm install emits to standard out and standard error. I didn't saw at first glance that they're not in order, but they were not. And I went to Stack Overflow, and I was stuck, and I was almost there to say, yeah, no, fuck it. I mean, I spent 2 weeks on this already, but it has to look pretty. The terminal has to look good. And I didn't find a solution until Hyper came along. Everybody's aware of Hyper? At least. So, Guillermo Rauch and Zeit, they released Hyper, and, well, it looks good, no? I mean, and I wanted to do the same. Kind of different, but kind of the same. So what Hyper does, basically, is they're not spawning commands. They're spawning shells for every session, which makes sense for a terminal. But this could also make sense for me then, because here it works. And commands are executed using standard in, which is a little bit weird for my use case, but yeah, it works. And then standard out. Works perfectly fine. So I could just head over there, borrow some principles, and it worked. Another thing I learned is that Hyper is using hterm, which is basically a Chromium project that has had its last commit 2 years ago, 3 years ago. It looks really outdated, but it works totally fine. And this is responsible for the rendering of an actual terminal inside of Hyper and Forest. So when you inspect that, this is a nice goodie of Electron apps too, right? If the app creators allow it, you can always just do Command-Alt-I and check the dev tools, how it's built, which is really nice. And yeah, hterm is actually just an iframe. So thanks to the community, I was able to succeed with my little play project. And this made me really, really, really happy. And when I'm now looking at the community that is happening around Electron, to Electron there are 533 contributors. On NPM there are more than 700 related projects. The Slack channel has more than 10,000 people. I mean, 10,000 people. When you go there, you have a problem, probably someone can help you. There's an awesome list, for everything is an awesome list, right? But this one is also awesome. And an organization on GitHub which actually is really interesting is Electron Userland. And I will tell you why this is interesting in a second. So what I showed you until this point is that you can use the Electron binary and you execute it on the current working directory, and then it starts, right? But this is not what you want to ship to your users. What you want to ship to your users is a .exe or an installer or normal desktop stuff. And the whole distribution tooling in the Electron ecosystem comes from the community. I mean, think of that. You're releasing a software, and the whole tooling around it is done by community. Well done. I mean, well done. So there's Electron Packager, which is just a Node module, and you can use it just like that. You have to execute it in the working directory, give it a name, and check what you want to build. And then I can drink another one. Come on. All right. So when you have Wine installed, you can also build on Windows, on a Mac, which is pretty nice. But this is not a full-fledged solution, right? I mean, a .app file, Mac users might be okay with that, to download something and drag it in the application folder. For Windows users, copying this stuff in the system 32 somewhere is probably not the best solution. So 2 years ago, I started this project which is called Electron Builder. And it has a completely different state than what I started it, and I don't want to have any credits for that one. This is what I started this project with. And you see that it's massive, let's say. So you had to build scripts, which are already really hard to understand, and it used also a config file. There's all the configuration that I needed to create installers. And I have to admit that I failed on that one. And then Vladimir Krivoshev approached me and he was like, dude, developer experience is important, and your tool is kind of missing the point here when I have to read docs for 20 minutes. And I was like, yeah, I'll take that one. So he took over the project, and he pushed it really to the next level, and he had the opinion that software should just work. And man, I learned that. And he told me that it was great. Good software, especially on the command line, has good defaults. It just works, right? Execute it, it will default to the most common thing. It has good error messages. Yeah, I got that one. And even if there is opinion in new software, I don't care if it works after 2 minutes. I can extend it at some point. And this is the important part. Even if the project or the software is opinionated and has strong default ones, as long as you can change it, I mean, that's perfect. So this is what he came up with. You need to have 4 fields in your package JSON: a name, a version, a description, and an author. An app ID, 2 icons, ICNS for Mac and ICO for Windows, and then there are 2 scripts. That's pretty nice, I think. So the first one uses Electron Packager under the hood and creates an exe and then .app, and the dist one creates a setup exe and a DMG for macOS. So when we run this now, I just made my little CTO program shippable. Ta-da! I'm really excited about that, by the way. So, where are we today? You notice this? I'm using Hyper, web technology, React app, highly customizable. People are going crazy with crazy plugins that enrich it with GIFs all the time, or everything's shaky. And I can always just open the DevTools and can debug it. And it's React Redux. I can do that. Then we have Atom and Visual Studio Code. Everybody was blaming Atom in the beginning that it's too slow and web technology cannot do it. But in the last 2 years, Atom and Visual Studio Code, well, they became pretty solid editors. And it's working really well. Chatting. Slack, right? Daily companion. But I also use an app that is called Franz. This is just web views around the messengers that are out there. So I'm using WhatsApp there and Facebook chat. Cool. I don't have to touch my mobile phone when I'm at work, because it's here anyways. And then my mail client, right? You saw my tabs. I'm using that one, which is called WMail. This is just a web view around Google Notes, Google Drive, Google Calendar, Gmail, and Inbox. Native notifications, feels like a complete desktop mail client. I'm loving that one. Then we have crazy people like Brandon Ike. Yeah, well, let's build a browser with Electron, right? No problem. Cool. And all the videos you saw in here were recorded with CUP, an Electron screen recording app. And Electron itself, or GitHub started to keep track of all the apps that are high quality. And inside of this list, there are 283 apps, high quality, in every area I can think of. Electron apps are slowly eating the desktop market, because it's all just people that care about this stuff and that are curious, and they push this stuff out for free. I mean, for me to hack on it. And when I think of that, I'm really excited. And Laurie Voss, who works at NPM, recently gave a talk, and he was saying, web dev is still delightfully fascinating, surprising, interesting, and wonderful. And this dude has 20 minutes of experience. 20 years, sorry. 20 years of experience. 20, well, that was a good one, at least. 20 years of experience. I have 7 years, and I couldn't agree more. Sometimes I cannot sleep at night because I read something and I'm like, holy shit, I have to build something with that. So building stuff for the desktop environment, for me, is just the missing piece. And Electron right now, it's not cutting edge anymore. It's mature, and you can build almost anything with it. And the community around it right now is on fire. You saw that, right? More than 250 apps. So I did a career change 7 years ago because I lost passion. And now I'm doing this thing that I love every single day, and I even get paid for that. And I see that I share this passion here with a lot of people. And I couldn't be happier about that. And that's it. Yeah, you find the slides there. After it, there are all the apps I mentioned, and this API demos, when you want to see what Electron is capable of easily. And yeah, I think that's it then.
Okay, so if you have any questions, okay, just raise your hand. Если у кого-то есть вопросы, можете поднять руку. Отлично.
Hi, thank you for the speech. I have a question on.
Hello.
Hi, thank you for the speech. What about using some DLL libraries to communicate with some hardware devices connected to the desktop? Do you working with it?
Dialog libraries?
C++ libraries, no.
At the end, you you're in a Node environment, right? You can bridge to C++ somehow. I'm not really sure about that how that works, but you can do that.
I read about it that someone do this thing, but it's a little bit complicated for now.
I didn't get that. Sorry. Wait a second.
You don't have an experience
with C++ and Node? No.
Okay.
Sorry about that.
У кого-нибудь еще, может, есть вопросы?
Hi. What about push notifications? Native push notification on macOS. Does it work with
Push notifications.
Yep.
There's a module for that. You can use the Node module, which is Notify. Just do it.
Cool.
I mean, everything that works in Node works in Electron.
And another question: so where you get this T-shirt?
I will share the link later.
Okay.
Hi, I have a question.
You have
let's
to speak a
consi-
little bit louder, or I come over.
No, I'll try to speak louder. Okay. So, if you consider an app like Friends, for example, which when you keep it open for a long time, since it's simply a browser inside, the DOM gets pretty big. So, does Electron provide any way to control the amount of memory which it takes, or it's all up to the developer to clean? Okay.
It's the same as in the browser, right? You have to take care of that.
Все? Ну, это уже будет последний вопрос, потому что по времени вообще
Right, thank you for your speech.